you're applying to medical school, chances are you're going to have to write a secondary essay, possibly several secondary essays. So today I want to share a secondary essay prompt with you and talk through some things that you might want to take into consideration in formulating your own response. First, hi, my name is Dr. Sarah Klebe, and I'm an admissions expert at BeMo. So the secondary prompt that I have for you today is this. Discuss a time in your life in which you have failed at something other than an academic experience. How did you confront that failure and what did you learn from it? Please describe how you typically approach challenges in your life. So, a question about failure, which we see quite frequently, but in this case, a question about failure at something non-academic. Whenever you're applying to various schools, it's very common for most of your experiences, the sort of anecdotes and stories that you tell, to be academic in nature. But they also want to know who you are outside of that educational context. And so a question like this is asking specifically for that. So first and foremost, the number one thing to keep in mind is that any question about failure is actually a question about resilience. They want to see how you deal with things when they don't go your way. Are you going to blow up? Are you going to give up? Are you going to resign yourself? Or are you going to overcome? Are you going to allow this to make you more resilient, more adaptable? Are you going to try to learn lessons from your failure to move forward and to allow these unfortunate negative experiences to still function positively and help you develop in a beneficial way as a person, as a student, as a future professional? So, the experience that you recount, the story that you tell is really up to you. There isn't really a bad type of answer to this. What's most important is that you focus on the second sort of part of the prompt. So the first part of the prompt is asking you to discuss that particular failure, to just sort of tell the story of what happened. But the more important part is the second half, how you confronted failure, how you learned from it, and how you typically approach challenges in your life. So if just sort of off the top of my head, I would give a sort of model answer to a question like this, one of the things that comes to mind is when I was in grade school. This would have been, oh my goodness, maybe fourth or fifth grade, quite young. I was on a basketball team for 1 year. We were absolutely terrible. We were the worst team in the entire league. We didn't win a single game. We were really, really awful. But we tried really hard. We took practice seriously. I would practice with my dad on the weekends, and in the evenings there was a school that we could drive to after school was out, and they had a basketball court, and we would do drills over and over, and I would try to learn to do the pivot and toss and all of these things. And I could do quite well when it was just me and my dad and I was learning, but something about being in the thick of things on the court with all the other players just would make me freeze up. And so I remember one game in particular where we almost won. We were really close to winning one single game in the entire season, and it sort of all came down to the last few seconds. I had the ball, and I was trying to do the pivot toss that my dad had taught me, and I remember feeling like I had it. I felt like I was going to do it. This was going to be it. I was excited about it. I did the pivot, I did the toss, and I threw it, and it was one of those moments where time just sort of slows down and the ball bounces around the rim, and instead of going in, it fell off to the side, and we didn't win, and I didn't make the shot, and it was definitely a moment of failure. And of course, as a team, we were very, sad that this happened. It was very hard, I imagine, for the coach to keep morale up when we didn't win. But at the time, of course, we tried to write it off. We went out for pizza afterwards anyway, and just tried to have a nice day and, talk about the good things that we did in terms of functioning together as a team. But, that experience was really formative to me because while initially we were upset that we didn't win, I was upset that I didn't make the basket and all of that, I came to realize that when I really thought about it, winning in the competitive sense didn't really matter all that much to me. I always wanted to do well because of the joy of doing well, of the ability to just reflect back on the things that we've done and say, yeah, I did a good job with that, or at least I put everything that I had into that, even if it didn't work out. And so this highly competitive experience actually helped me realize that I'm not a super competitive person in general. I much prefer the idea of working together, of being collaborative, of sort of minimizing hierarchies and trying to find ways in which every member of a team can function most effectively, can highlight their own strengths, and how we can each complement and support each other. So, in that particular kind of experience, I learned a lot about how I would react to failures in the sort of competitive context, which is to say that I learned that I don't value competitiveness for the sake of being competitive, and I don't value winning or getting ahead for the sake of competition. I simply want to do my best because I like doing my best. And so, that taught me quite a bit. It helped me think through additional failures in the future. And now, in terms of describing how I typically approach challenges in my life, I would say that if I'm faced with a challenge, I know that, whatever it is, if I'm invested into it, I'm going to put everything that I have into it. But I also understand that I'm not always going to be perfect. I'm not always going to do everything perfectly. And importantly, that I need to give others in my life the same understanding that I give myself when I don't succeed, right? Not only am I not always going to be perfect, those around me are not always going to be perfect either. Those with whom I work aren't always going to be perfect. Everyone is a flawed creature in some way. We all have strengths and weaknesses. And instead of dwelling on the failure, I would rather take a step back, take stock of what we are each able to do well individually, and think together about how we can come together as a group, as a set of collaborators, to enhance each other's strengths and to support each other where there are weaknesses. So, that helped me a lot, for example, in graduate school, where things can get intensely competitive and you're in competition. Even if you're not competitive, you're in competition with your own cohort, with people, that you're friends with, that you spend an awful lot of time with in classes and research projects and things like that. And instead of always trying to, step out and, sort of shine and try to be the best, the one who gets all the accolades and all of that, I really wanted to find space to, help others articulate themselves most effectively and think about how I could support them. And that prepared me for teaching, because I can work collaboratively with students, as opposed to positioning myself as, some kind of higher up authority figure, which actually helps students in terms of demonstrating their own creativity and critical thinking skills. It helps me be a good part of a team here at BeMo, working with my colleagues, thinking through all of the different ways that we complement each other and thinking through where we can support each other, where there are weaknesses. And so this one failure that was just really a tiny blip in terms of my overall life narrative, it happened so long ago, 30 years ago at this point probably, ultimately set me up for a considerable shift in perspective, away from competitiveness towards collaboration, and always thinking through how we can support one another. Not how we can beat one another, not how we can rise above one another, but how we can all lift each other up. So that would be probably what I would respond to this particular prompt. Your response will be highly individualized to your own experiences. But again, remember the second part of the prompt, those questions about what you learned from failure and how you approach challenges in your life, those are going to be what's most important. So don't spend a ton of time detailing every nuance of the experience. You usually won't have a whole lot of space to write secondary essays. Sometimes they're max, 250 to 500 words, so quite short. So tell the story briefly, be as concise as you can, and really put most of your thought and focus into overcoming challenges, dealing with failure, what you've learned, how you've grown, why you're a better person today for having gone through that negative experience in the past. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and that it was helpful. If so, please do go ahead, like it, share it with a friend who might benefit from it. Be sure to follow us on whichever social media platform you're on right now. If you'd like us to help you, click the link that should appear either above or below this video to see our programs and schedule your free initial consultation. We'll set you up with one of our admissions experts to answer any questions you might have and get you started on your preparations. We have programs to suit any of your needs, and we're always happy to work with you to determine which plan is going to support you and your goals most effectively. As ever, thank you so very much for your time. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.